ワンピースは実在する。
俺はモンキー D ルフィ、お前らを超えて海賊王になる男だ。
人の夢は終わらねえ。
Welcome
to Nerdville.
We'll never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy. We must be cautious.
Hello there everyone, I'm Fanfi.
I'm Turtle. This is honestly one of the saddest backstory in One Piece. This is too much. The emotional roller coaster is real.
Oh no.
Yeah, so obviously we're definitely wrong about Bonnie being Genie's clone, but we still believe that she's a clone though. The evidence still stands.
This cover page is very much like the ones we've had previously, with characters represented by animals. Here, Brook is rocking his electric guitar, powered by an electric eel. It's also quite hilarious how we get an explanation from Oda-sensei, written on Brook's legs, as to why the chapter seems to be unfinished.
This chapter starts at the revolutionary headquarters, where they receive a call asking them to help overthrow a government in the South Blue. Eva mentions here that they are already busy and they can't spare the men. As Kuma says he will go, Eva interjects that he has been very reckless since that day, referring to Genie's capture. Kuma immediately arrives, looking like he was ready to go on a rampage. Kuma remembers that day, his eyes full of anger. We are told that she has caught the eye of a celestial dragon that wishes to wed her. Could Bonnie be a celestial dragon? Based on the information given, it looks like Bonnie was conceived during Genie's capture. So, her biological father would be a celestial dragon. In that case, why would the Gorosei not care about Bonnie? Since we know that Shanks, for instance, seems to be treated differently. For example, Jay Garcia orders the Marines to shoot her in chapter 1095, while in One Piece Film Red, they were worried about eliminating Uta since she could have been a figureland. Even amongst bastards, it looks like there's a hierarchy in the Celestial Dragon Society. We return to the country Kuma aided, where they celebrate the victory. The celebration continues, where they call them the heroes of the people, as Kuma returns to Dragon, saying he's worn out and he will be returning to the ship. The narrator informs us that 2 years have passed since Genie's capture. We see a ship with someone crying. As an individual mentions, we're almost there, Bonnie.
Also, something interesting revealed in this chapter is that, well, Bonnie is not really 24, but actually 12, since Genie was captured 14 years ago, and then the narrator tells us that roughly 2 years later is when Genie manages to make it back to the surface. So all of you Bonnie simps out there, watch out.
FBI, open up!
We go back to the revolutionary headquarters as Eva yells to Kuma that Genie is on the line. This cuts to a panel of Dragon, Eva, and Kuma listening to a Denden Mushi, as Genie tells them that she was able to come back to the surface, explaining that they didn't want her after she got sick, continuing with, "What a stroke of luck." Kuma worries and says, "You're sick?" She adds that she wanted to see everyone one last time, but unfortunately, this call would be their goodbyes. Kuma immediately interjects, asking where she is, and that he can be there instantly. Genie apologizes, letting him know that she is going to die, but doesn't want him to see her like this. She finishes by asking Dragon and Eva to take care of Kuma, since he has a big heart. As she says that, Kuma bolts, pushing people out of the way, and he says there is only one place she could be. As he gets outside, he teleports away to the church in the Sorbet Kingdom. Genie tells him that she loves him, and always will. As he arrives, the villagers are surprised, but Kuma immediately asks where she is. They tell him she is here, but that when her skin was exposed to natural light, it turned blue and hardened. Oda shows us her arm and legs are full of gemstone-like objects, as Kuma remembers their childhood and her proposal. Kuma, sobbing, holding his beloved, wonders how this could have happened, and hugs her. They explain she made the journey to ensure Bonnie's safety. As Bonnie cries, Kuma tells Genie she can rest now, and promises he will take care of Bonnie. The next panel is of Genie's grave, where Kuma pays his respects. We go back to the church, where someone yells out, "You're doing it wrong." It's the old folks who decide to teach Kuma how to feed a baby. This situation is so cute and funny, seeing a giant trying to feed a tiny baby. The old folks also suggest an iron cage to keep her safe, since he might squish her in his sleep. Kuma, seeing Bonnie's large appetite, is brought to tears since she resembles her mother. After this, we get to see Bonnie able to say her first words. Kuma can't handle the cuteness and starts bawling out. The pair continues living together as Kuma leaves her with the old folk when he goes on revolutionary missions.
The next couple of panels show us Kuma fighting and taking care of her. We even get to see Sabo fighting Kuma when they meet. All of this is very heartwarming and sad, obviously, since Kuma's fear about having a daughter are kind of being alleviated here. We saw in chapter 1095 that because he is of Buccaneer heritage, that Kuma was very valued as a slave. Bonnie is not a Buccaneer, so she will not be subject to the same discrimination. And in the previous chapter, he's shown hesitation when Genie proposed, for the very same reason. Sadly, this father-daughter relationship came at the cost of the love of his life. It's very nice to see Kuma happy after having suffered yet another tragedy. But as we're used to with Kuma's backstory, tragedy strikes again.
Emotional, damn it!
In the church, the three bullies ask Kuma what's going on and why they need to seal all the windows. Kuma answers with, "Take a look below her eye." We see that gems are forming, and Kuma adds that she probably has her mother's sickness. The bullies run out of the church saying they're getting a doctor. One doctor shows up, suggesting to take her outside to see it. As Kuma tells him he's crazy, another doctor comes and tells Kuma that this doesn't seem to be white lead poisoning, the disease that we saw Law contract in his backstory. Kuma, in that moment, makes a decision. He tells Eva and Dragon that he's quitting the Revolutionary Army due to Bonnie's illness. Dragon tells him that he understands and to live his life with no regrets, and that he can use all of their contacts to find a solution. This moment is epic for us, since once again we see a common trait of the Monkey D family. His answer would be exactly what Garp or Luffy would say in the same situation. Also, like the other two, he's a true D, never taking away individual freedom over the greater good. This is in contrast with the world government that sacrifices people's individual freedoms for their selfish purposes. Usually, strong revolutionary leaders would try to convince such an important resource to stay, but Dragon understands that people need to live without regrets, since it seems he lives his life without any regrets. Quick thing everyone, thanks for getting us over 150 subs. If any of you haven't subscribed yet, how about giving it a whirl? Don't forget to smash that like button.
Do it.
We are 7 years from the present day. We see Bonnie, age 5, acting just like her mother, defending herself against bullies, who are calling her names such as ugly vampire, referring to the fact that she can't leave the church and can't be exposed to the sun. As she kicks one in the face, someone stops her. It's Kuma, asking her to stay inside as she tells him he is a worrywart, adding she hates it when he's all sad and worried. Kuma gives her a big bear hug, crying, saying she is so cute. Bonnie complains about the kids making fun of the rocks on her face, as Kuma jumps in, saying, "Are you talking about your jewels?" Adding it's because they are jealous, and he loves her gems. This cheers Bonnie up immediately. Kuma asks Bonnie where she would like to go. She answers that she would want to go to Sky Island. As the two continue making their plans, Bonnie informs her dad that she read about the Sky Islands in a book, and that these islands must be very close to the sun, suggesting that they might meet Nika there, as Kuma dances and sings the rhythm of the drums just like his father. This is cool, since we saw that Kuma had told Bonnie about Nika in chapter 1095, so dancing around to the beat of the Nika drums might be their daily routine. This is also a funny wink from Oda, since the first moment we saw Nika's silhouette was at the big banquet in Skypiea. Kuma finally meets a doctor that gives him a correct diagnosis, an incurable illness, and she would be lucky to live to her 10th birthday. Kuma is crushed and mumbles it back to himself. As he enters the church, Bonnie jumps out scaring him. She tells him that she heard everything. Kuma, confused, asks what she means. Bonnie tells him that she heard that when she will turn 10, it will all be over. Kuma, preserving her innocence, tells her that she will be cured by the age of 10. While our Bonnie is Ginny idea is obviously not the case, the possibility of her being a clone is still there.
What do you mean by that?
We know that Bonnie has a terminal illness now, and she spent a good amount of time on Egghead Island when she was young. We can assume here, by her saying when she was young, that Kuma bringing her to Vegapunk will happen soon, more than likely in the next chapter. Also, I'm sure all of you thought like us when the doctor said, going by our current scientific understanding, that the obvious solution to this was Vegapunk himself, whose scientific expertise is far beyond any doctor in the world. It is very likely, as we pointed out in the previous chapter, that Kuma compromised his morals by making a deal with the world government to allow them to experiment on his body with the objective of creating an army of Buccaneer super soldiers, the Pacifistas, while having Vegapunk cure Bonnie of her disease. We have two possible explanations for how Bonnie might have been cured.
One, as we stated in the previous review, Bonnie might be a clone. This would be a simple fix if Vegapunk already has the tech at his disposal, where they could clone Bonnie's body without the disease and make Kuma extract the original Bonnie memories and implant them in the clone. We know that Vegapunk can clone people from a small amount of DNA. Since the Seraphims are clones of the 7 warlords, it seems unlikely that they would be present during the cloning process since Jinbei had no idea this was happening, and must have been cloned from DNA gathered in various moments, battles, etc. So the fact that Vegapunk could create an exact copy of Bonnie without the illness is very possible. 2. The doctor had mentioned that the illness was very rare, and that these days we've never seen it. This could be a hint that this might have been an illness in the Void Century.
What?
No, seriously. We're pretty sure that Marie-Joie was created after the Void Century, as we see in Pangaea Castle that there seems to be a hidden chamber. We saw this when Imu was looking at a frozen straw hat. Also, in chapter 1084, Sabo heard the guards whisper about the lost chamber. Since Genie spent a good amount of time in Marie-Joie, and she used to be part of the Revolutionary Army, we can assume that she probably tried to do a bit of investigative work while she was there, since we saw in chapter 1096 how talented she was when it comes to being a spy, since she leaked the information about the God Valley incident to all the big players. As a freaking slave at the age of 13, so as a fully grown adult trained by the Revolutionary Army, she would be more than capable of doing some snooping around. Maybe she found a lost chamber where other artifacts of the Void Centuries are stored in a vault, and encountered the disease that way. Vegapunk would also perhaps have some knowledge to cure such an illness, since this would have happened after he saved some of Ohara's knowledge about this period in history.
The chapter ends on the return of the Banished King, ready to continue where he left off. The old folk ask Kuma to save them. The king's return could only be possible if he has backup from the Celestial Dragons, but they could be using him as an excuse to flush out Kuma. Also, it seems rather odd that Kuma has been living here all these years, openly defying the government of this nation, without the world government knowing that one of the heads of the Revolutionary Army lives here. Also, we believe that this might be how Kuma is going to become the next king of the Sorbet Kingdom, since we know that Kuma becomes its king eventually, and that this would be the perfect moment for it. This backstory has been an emotional roller coaster, and it's still not over. Every chapter of this backstory, we keep getting Kuma being happy, and then it being snatched away. It's horrible. And Kuma is definitely a contender for having one of the saddest backstories in One Piece. It is different from other backstories that we have seen, where it is one big event that is horrible and changes their lives for the worst. Here, it seems finding happiness and then it being taken away is the theme of Kuma's life, which is honestly quite horrifying to have to live through.
Thanks for watching, everyone. This is our review of chapter 1098 of One Piece. Hope you enjoyed. Do you agree that Kuma's backstory is easily one of the saddest in One Piece? And that Kuma might have compromised his morals to work with the world government in order to save his daughter's life? Let us know in the comments below. Positive or negative, we need the engagement. If you want to learn a little bit about the Old Republic era in Star Wars,
How about you check out our playlist on our duo playthrough of Star Wars The Old Republic?
a very cool story.
Embrace the dark side. Do it. Click on the next video.
See you next time.
Peace out.